Yeah, might as well start.
Okay.
Got some stuff to do.
So I just well, I'd like to welcome everyone who's joined today, and we've got 32 people so far on the Zoom. So thank you for joining us tonight. And we've got the filmmaker Polly Wells, and then the folks that are covered in the movie, Annie Patterson and Peter Blood. And I'm very excited to have them all here today, because in my mind, the book that they put together, Rise Up Singing, was as influential on folk music as the Gutenberg Press was to spreading education, and the Bible across Europe. So I'm very honored to have you guys here, and also, we were talking about what singing does, and I think really what it does is we live in a time where there's so little community. So singing causes us to have communities and to bridge our differences, and I think it's more important than it's ever been before. So, we were talking about Pete Seeger, and I always viewed him as kind of like a Johnny Appleseed, and he would find different folks who had different ways of getting the message out, and that's why, when Annie and Peter approached him, he gravitated towards that, and I think they're a great example of people who took an idea and turned it into something wonderful. So, and a little bit about Annie and Peter. They met in the early '80s, and we talked a little bit earlier about how their families would sing in their homes, and they had similar music that they sang, so that kind of was a natural bond that they had. And they've been together for 4 decades. I can't believe that. You guys look way younger to be for 4 decades. So we're gonna reduce that. I'm taking it to 2 decades. So I'm making that. Um, and so their books, amazing bestsellers, Rise Up Singing and Rise Again, and I think almost everybody has that in their library. And I thank you for having the vision to do that. And then Polly, who put the movie together, I just want to congratulate you for really capturing the feeling of both. Since I'm a member of the Sloop Club and I've been to the songs, you really captured what it's like to be at the Circle of Songs, and I think you did a tremendous job. So I really thank you for doing that. And Polly is also, she's not a stranger to being in the Empire State. She worked, I think, in New York City for about 10 years or so, and worked with all the major networks, and started doing her first documentary at 21, which was about 2 years ago, Polly, right? So,
Yeah, about that.
but and also for folks who are joining us tonight who don't know the Beacon Sloop Club, we are a sister organization to the Clearwater, and we have a mission for teaching people about the Hudson River and getting it clean, and also teaching people how to sail. And we were the home club for Pete Seeger, who so he was a frequent guest, and he would and a great member. So and we continue to do his work. We sail on the boat that was Pete's boat, who he gave to the club, and he fell in love with sailing, and he decided that he wanted to sail on clean water, and so he created the Clearwater and the Woody Guthrie. So and we'd love to have all of you come out and sail with us when we're back in the water again. Right now we're working on putting the boat together. She was during the winter we take off all the sails and the spars, and we put them back on again. And we'll be sending out information in the future when we can take people out, and we take people out for free. We take out about 1,500 people a season, which is quite a lot of people, since we can only take out 13 people at a time. So we do encourage you to come and visit us. And there's a lot of club members here, and the club members also take part in the festivals that we have. We have a pumpkin festival and a corn festival and a strawberry festival. And these are some of the biggest festivals that they have in Beacon, and very well attended, and a lot of fun. So we hope that we'll be soon in a place where we can have proper festivals again. But I think I've covered most of the things there. Alan, you'll keep me honest, and let me know if I haven't covered the things that we need to.
Well, I think that's good.
All right.
Without further ado, we should welcome our guests back to the Sloop Club.
Great. So what we do is I'll go ahead and I'll start asking questions. Alex had a question, and what I'll do is I'm going to relay questions. If you can put them into the chat, either to everyone or directed to myself, Steve Vandermerwe, and then I'll relay them to our guests. So the first question is from Alex, and she said, "I enjoyed the film so much. Thank you. I have a question for Polly. What was your process for selecting the archival images you used in the film?"
Ah, wow. Well, the process is first identifying them. And that is usually a Google search of some kind. And what I wanted to do especially is find, certainly in the Mississippi section, I wanted to find images that no one had seen before or fewer people had seen. And I came across a huge cache of incredible photos in the University of Southern Mississippi. So I went through hundreds of pictures to pick the ones I did in the end. And I mean, there are a lot of images in the film. So I think another way to look at the process is you sort of put your story together and you see the places where you don't have visual material. And then you start looking for ways to bring the film to life in those sections. So I had, I don't know, at least a dozen different sources for my photographs, and some had to spend a lot of money for a single image, and some were very kindly given to me for free. And it ran the gamut, and it was really interesting. I don't think I'd ever had to find so many pictures before. So it was a real learning experience for me.
All right, thank you. So there was a question about the Clearwater, and I think David, I think we gave you an answer there as to where the Clearwater is. But I had a question myself that Annie and Peter and Polly, how did you guys meet, and what was the genesis for the idea for the film?
I should probably answer that first because I approached them. Actually, I had a history in my own mind with them for decades. They didn't know me, but I knew them. I was, my brother married into a Quaker family in Pennsylvania, and everyone in that family were singers. They sang together as a family, and they had copies of Winds of the People, which is the book you see in the film. And then I got Rise Up Singing sort of through the same association with his family. So I knew of Annie and Peter for a long time before I actually met them. I was inspired to make a film about them because I became a filmmaker along the way. And there was an article in the New York Times about them. And I had Rise Up Singing and Winds of the People for decades, carrying them around wherever I moved. I would bring my books with me. And there was this article about how impactful the book, Rise Up Singing in particular, had been on music making, singing, spawning song circles all over North America. And I thought that was such an amazing story. I wanted to make a film about it. So that's when I got in touch with them, and they kind of knew the family I knew. So that was they kind of gave me credence of some kind and were willing to work with me. So you can tell the other half if you want, guys. But that's how I got to them.
Yeah, I remember that first connection with you, Polly. And I remember thinking, gosh, if she's related to the Snipes, then, then this is family, because we'd known them for so long.
Singing brings people together in many different kinds of settings. And one of the things that happened even with the prequel, Winds of the People, was that we would go to these big national Quaker conferences in the summer. And what we would do is we would have a sing at lunchtime because there was very long lines for lunch. So you could sing for an hour, and then when you finished the hour of singing, the lines were a lot shorter. And we'd have 100, sometimes 150 people jammed into a big, room of some kind, a lobby or a big room of some sort. And the Snipes family would all go to this gathering as the extended
Mm.
family, and there's probably 20 of them or something, come to the gatherings, and they really enjoy seeing each other for the week, and especially enjoy singing together every day. So it was kind of neat. And there were other families that did the same thing. Would come to the gathering and see each other and have fun singing together out of the books.
Yeah.
Very cool. Thank you. So we have another. We have a question from David. He asked Polly, "Are you a musician?"
Um, I do sing, and I'm taking lessons for the first time. So I haven't been professionally singing by any means. And I've learned to play the ukulele inspired by the song circle I'm in. So kind of, yeah, I'm becoming one.
Thank you. Then another question. How did you choose the Sloop Club for a scene in the movie?
It was the first shoot I did, actually. And I hadn't even met Annie and Peter. We met in Beacon at Katama's house, or his father's house. Um, I think it was just because I knew from interviewing Annie and Peter in preparation for starting the film, I knew how critical Pete was in so many facets, early inspiration, early in their lives, and then he was so helpful, kind of advising them on getting Rise Up Singing made and published. And he just stayed. That relationship was sort of there as a mentor relationship and a friend relationship for 30 years. So I knew that I really wanted Pete to be in the film. And when I was ready to start filming, Peter said, well, we're going to Beacon to see Pete in 1 month. Could you film then? And that's not a heck of a lot of time to prepare to go film, because I didn't have anything set up at all. But of course I said yes. And Peter was kind enough to ask Pete if he would be okay with me filming. And it just, once I got the green light, I just worked to make that happen. And it was one of the best shoots we had. So it was an incredible experience.
I'm going to jump in and just say it was a tricky time because Toshi was really not
Yeah.
well. And so, you know, we needed to really think carefully about it. But I will say the sloop everybody was so generous.
We had been to the Sloop Club before that several times, or at least I had been several times, because when I was working on Pete's autobiography, Where Have All the Flowers Gone, I frequently went to Beacon to visit him. You know, he'd pick me up down at the railroad station with his old handmade electric pickup truck with all the batteries in the back. What kind of a
You
truck
all
is
know
this?
that.
And
I'm
that was
sure.
quite a sight for me. And so I had been to the club and been to things at the club. So I knew that as soon as Polly asked about it, I knew that would be a great idea. And I can't even remember if it was a regular monthly sing or if we kind of structured it to make sure there was a sing when Polly came. But it was a great night. It really worked out really well.
Thank
I
you.
think it was a regular sing, actually. I think you were invited to as guests that night, and
Yeah, that sounds right.
you coordinated your meeting with Pete around that. Yeah.
So a question came in for Annie and Peter. It's like, how did you choose the songs?
For Rise Up Singing
Right.
or
I
Rise
think
Again?
I'm going to let the person would be Alan. Alan, would you?
Yeah, I meant for Rise Up Singing. How did you choose and organize the songs for the first book?
Well, you know, we had made a book called Winds of the People. Actually, Peter, that was his project, and I came in at the tail end of that. I met Peter, I don't know how many years after that came out. About a year, maybe. And so a lot of those songs were on a list, you know, for a potential new book, because Winds of the People was an illegal songbook, and we wanted to make it above board. But we had a wonderful group of folks who met regularly, and we all brought our songs to the table. Pete was on that group. Johanna Halbeson was on that group. A bunch of other folks. Do you remember who was on that original group? Some really great folks. And we all would meet Ann Wright. We met at Ann's house once. We'd sit around the table. Everybody would bring, Pat Humphreys was on that group.
Not the first one.
Not the first one? Oh, okay. She was on Rise Against committee. So we had a bunch of folks and we sat around the table and people would say, what about this? What about that? And these were folks we thought were really, really knew about group singing.
I had been leading singing since high school for various kinds of groups, like young Quakers groups, peace groups, groups working on civil rights together. And so I had folders that were full of lists of songs, sheets with hand typed songs. And I'd sort of pull them out and I would type them into handmade song sheets with, maybe 100 songs or 200 songs typed on, what would they call them? Stencil machines or something.
Oh, mimeograph.
Yeah, these old
Mommy, what's a mimeograph?
pre-Xerox methods. And so a lot of those folders of songs eventually made it into Rise Up Singing, because Rise Up Singing was pretty much our favorite 1,200 songs, if you can believe that. But Rise Again was very different because we wanted to make sure we went way beyond our circle of songs we knew and loved to really diving deep into genres that we weren't as familiar with.
I will say, just as a little add-on here, that I think a lot of us that love music had those folders filled with songs. So it was nothing unique, really, except that, like if you go to a festival, you all might remember this, you'd pull out your satchel, and maybe you had your favorite little journal that had all those songs in it. I had one too. So when I met Peter, we both had different musical backgrounds. And so when we came together, that was kind of how we chose Rise Up Singing songs. I mean, to say there are some songs that we wouldn't put in that book today, knowing what we do now. We were, a bit young, naive, white kids, but I will say that I think we did a good job fixing some of those issues with Rise Again, although there are plenty of other issues, but we won't talk about that.
I would
Or we
add,
will.
I would just add that you also pitched the songs for the average voice. I mean, you made the songs accessible to people. And I think that was really an important contribution. Yeah.
That was Peter. He gets credit for that, because I would not have pitched them there because I don't always sing in the key of D. But he kept saying, children have higher voices, which is really true. And the average person, I would say, appreciates it. It makes it tough for the tenors and the altos.
We also worked hard on trying to make the chords easily playable. Often musicians will write songs in complicated keys and in with certain complicated chords that aren't your three main chords, so to speak. And we tried to make them so that anybody who was a relatively new guitarist or banjo player or something could play them. But the interesting thing is, because we included genres that made it hard to do that in the new book, like there's a chapter of jazz, for example, it's really hard to write jazz chords that are easily playable and yet still keep the feel of the original. And fortunately, Annie had a friend from a band she had played with sometimes that was incredible at keeping the feel of a jazz song and yet making them easily playable. And so, frankly, we couldn't have done that without his help. He was terrific.
So next question from David to Polly. How do you prepare for a live event and for interviews?
Well, the live events are challenging, and each one was different. And I had to rely on, couldn't afford to take a crew with me everywhere I was shooting. So I was dealing with new people each time. And sometimes, for example, in Burlington, Vermont, there are not a lot of camera people. There happened to be an incredible sound guy. There were just different talents in each place, and they all kind of made it work for me. But I pretty much did it in a very minimal way. I always tried to have 2 cameras on any live event, but sometimes I didn't. Like in Burlington, Vermont, in one of the scenes, I didn't have 2 cameras, and it made it much harder to edit, actually. No surprise to you. So how did I prepare? I worried a lot. I just tried to, because I hadn't shot a lot of music, and I depended on the knowledge of the people I was hiring in many cases. And they gave me advice, and they just were, all of them, very supportive of the project. And in terms of the interviews, well, I kind of overshot some interviews and undershot some interviews. And I think I exhausted Annie and Peter the first interview. So it was a learning experience. I tried, and I also shot over many, many years because of just it was a really an iterative process for me, because I was sort of getting the money together to do the next shoot each time. So I would like to think I had a process, but it was definitely an evolving process.
So a follow-up question to that is, how much film did you shoot, and what percentage made it into the film?
Quite a large percentage, because I shot, I think, 5 or 6 times. So I used quite a bit of the footage, and I made the best film I could out of the material I had. And it was I didn't come in with a fixed length. I thought it might be a 15-minute film. I knew it wasn't going to be an hour. And I really didn't know exactly how long it was going to be. And it just found itself at 23 and a half minutes. That was
Okay.
the right length for this material. And I wish I had had more footage. I wish I'd had time and money to shoot more, but I am very happy with the film. I'm very happy with the film. So it's, and being a short film, I think, is very nice. I think shorter films are great. So I'm quite happy with that. It's just a little bit of an odd length for the broadcast slots and all of that, but I don't think it matters so much anymore.
It's a question for Annie. Thank you. The question for Annie and Peter: do you have certain songs you use for icebreakers to get people singing?
Yes.
Can we ask what they are?
They
Trade secret.
change.
Okay.
No, they change because we get tired of them, and people get tired of them. "I'll Fly Away" is a classic, but it's not perfect for every setting, and we wouldn't necessarily do that at some kind of concerts and sing-alongs. We've done a Midnight Special if people are there to hear about Pete. That's a good one. I mean, a lot of people don't know that song. It's so funny. I grew up on like washing dishes at camp with that song. So we have to kind of think about the audience, and then we think about, well, what song has a really easy chorus? So if people have never heard it before, they're going to get the chorus because we'll line it out or whatever. I use an iPad, and I have a whole bunch of songs that are starter offers. Like we would never start with Cy Khan's Aragon Mill because that's a really beautiful song. It's just too slow. And so I'm not sure I'm even really going to do it unless there's an arc to the evening where you want it to kind of get nice and soft for a little while. And so we've really worked on this for a really long time of trying to figure out what is going to help the evening. Like the energy can't get too low. Like if 5 people show up, we probably are going to, think about adjusting our set list some.
We almost always do a high energy song, like Annie was implying, like Hard Traveling is a great way to start off with a bang. There's a wonderful civil rights anthem, Woke Up This Morning With My Mind. We'll often start with that. There's a Sally Rogers song that's a refrain, an echo song. So Annie sings a line and the audience sings a line called Plant Me a Garden. And all those songs, everybody kind of wakes up and they're kind of really with you. So you always want to start with something that's not too hard. They don't have to know it, but they have to be able to jump in through an easy chorus or a refrain, like Andy was saying. And certain songs just are almost always a winner as an opening song.
We'll have a set list and for what we do, and we'll look at who shows up and we'll change it sometimes. Like if there's a bunch of families with little kids, I might do Mama Don't Allow, no banjo playing around here. And if there's banjo players, I might do that too. I don't know. I hope that answers the question.
It does. Thank you. We have a question from R. King. Can you tell us the story of the tapes? That is the cassette recordings with just a verse and chorus of melodies for the songs in Rise Up Singing.
Yeah, that was a very low budget project that we decided to try and pull off. People really wanted to learn the songs in Rise Up Singing. It was the early 90s.
Pre-internet.
Yeah, it was also, the CDs weren't around, obviously. They were first made on cassette tapes and we recorded onto a reel-to-reel. It was really old school. And such a low budget that almost everybody donated their time, including John McCutcheon and Magpie and Kim and Reggie Harris, who are all on those songs. So the idea was to just have enough of the song to teach it, fade out, go to the next one, all in the order. And then we had the idea that gear it towards teachers. So we compiled kind of an organized coupling of chapters that we thought were on a theme that would go good. So we had one set for this theme, another set for that theme. And we recorded I'd go in the morning, like 8:30 in the morning, and I would sing all the way through until around 7 o'clock at night.
Oh.
I would just go boom, 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 boom. And fortunately, I mean, I knew really great musicians because I was a professional musician. I still am. And so it was really a labor of love. And I'm forever, ever indebted to my dear, wonderful sister musician, Wendy Bourne, because she learned to play the guitar and she learned how to play Peter's shorthand, chording that's in the book just for the project.
So I saw
people, I would say just about that. People still love the teaching discs. It's amazing to me because, musicians, we don't sell a lot of CDs anymore, but for some reason, these CDs, people still want to have them. And some people buy them and they play them in their car for their kids on long rides. And my brother did that and he called me up and he said, thanks a lot. I am sick of these songs. But, it's an interesting history.
It's interesting that people are still buying them fairly often. We get orders for the whole set of 20 discs, which is fairly expensive. But the funny thing is, on our website now, you can actually go through a chapter of the book, and it's something called the music box. You go into a song in the book, and you can hit next at the bottom of the page.
We call it a search engine.
Well, but it not only is a search engine, but you can go from song to song through a chapter of the book, just like you could with the old teaching discs and teaching cassettes. But people like to have the CDs. Some people still get them, even though you can use the website to do it.
Well, the difference with the music box, the search engine, it just takes you to YouTube videos of other people singing the songs. And what's nice about the teaching discs is it's just somebody singing the melody, and it's simple. And, after a while, we gave up on keeping to the exact key that's in the songbook because I couldn't sing in a lot of those keys. I really did. I just couldn't. And there's a song, some complicated songs. And I just no, we gotta. So that's why I say, and for this song, you're going to want to capo your guitar up 6 frets, crazy stuff like that, which normally we would never do that. But now you have the scoop.
And the question, another question came on is that are the teaching discs used in schools?
They have been.
Mhm.
We've sold them to plenty of schools over the years. And I've performed at a lot of schools. So sometimes the kids are familiar, um, but I don't know whether they're still using it.
Once in a while, we get college professors who use the book for one of their courses. So we'll get an order for, like 50 copies for some university to use it in their college course. Because I don't know if they use it for a history course or a music course exactly. Could
So
be either.
I'm just gonna say now for folks that who want to ask a question, please feel free to like put the question in the chat, and I'll be happy to relay the question. So there's a little chat that's at the bottom of your screen, most likely, and just click on that and type the question in, and I'll relay the question. So, are there any songs that kind of get stuck in your head? You walk around the house and just kind of like an earworm, and just you find yourself, and you wish you had never heard that song in the first place.
Oh my God. I mean, does a bear have hair? Last night, Peter's right before we're going to bed, he said, I have this lovely, lovely, very sweet version of Malvina Reynolds' Little Boxes going in my head
In
right now.
French, no less.
Right. And I'm like, thanks a lot. Now we're not going to go to sleep.
He assured me that they'll get teeth on that residence.
So I'm just gonna mute somebody.
Because the question
one
was
thing.
asked today of the gentleman at the planning board.
A very
Right,
interesting
there we go.
conversation. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of earworms that come our way. And I mean, one of the issues that we have, of course, is well, now we have 3 songbooks. So, over 2,400 songs in my head. I don't
Oh.
remember lyrics anymore. That's my issue. I mean,
So-
it's always been my issue, but now I have a good excuse.
So, a question for Polly. It's like, what is your next project?
Well, I shot quite a bit of footage about on a song circle here in Toronto where I live, and I want to cut that film. It's a good companion piece to We Began to Sing. And after that, I don't know. I really don't know what I'm going to do. Except I know I'm going to garden.
There we go. So a question to all 3 of you, since you've been so intimately involved in song circles, I know some folks that are involved in song circles, and some of them struggle to maintain membership. So what would you say is things that you've seen for successful song circles, that things that kept people coming back and kept them at like a healthy ecosystem?
Well, in the current era, it's impossible to get together to sing. And my song circle happens every Friday night on Zoom, which is incredible. We can't sing together, but we can share songs. One of us, is mic'd, so to speak, on everyone else is on mute. So there are people can find a way to sing in spite of the pandemic. But in general, the song circle I'm most familiar with here in Toronto is very free. And I think the thing that works is that it happens very regularly every single Friday night. And you never know what's going to happen because you have no idea who's going to sing what. Everyone who wants to brings a song, and most people do. But it ends up being the most exciting evening of the week because it's full of surprises, and you learn songs you've never heard and you hear songs you've forgotten about. There's incredible joy in the exploration of all these. I have learned so many songs just going to Song Circle every week or even every other week. And I think food is always a good thing. Having a break, time to talk. It's a social event as well as a singing event. And I think that's really important. And it becomes a community and you want to be part of it. And you kind of start identifying as a person who sings with this group. And But no one ever tells you what you should sing. You get to choose. Everyone in the circle gets to choose, and if there's just all this surprise and delight and the unexpected. I think that's a huge part of it for me.
Things that work well tend to have a fairly similar pattern in my experience, not identical. For one thing, in addition to food, I think the things that founder often they don't have a critical mass of people who can really lead a song. It's definitely a different skill to lead a song in a group than to just perform. I mean,
And having
there
a
are
few musicians
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. So as Polly was saying, many song circles are a little different than just the kind of song circle where people take turns performing, because you have to be really somebody who can sing well enough to do that. But a lot of the circles will let people just ask for a song, and then hopefully there's somebody in the group who knows it well enough to lead it. And that gives a wider sense of participation than just having a few people, lead their own songs.
We used to have singing, a monthly sing at our house when we lived in Pennsylvania for years. And we had, a kind of an informal team of people who knew how to pick a song. But we just did an interview with a couple women from Canada who are they're really interested in getting young people to do sings again. Like they really want to have a movement. And we must have been, Pete Seeger was probably smiling down on us because we said, start local and just find your people and pick out those common songs that are successful. They're going to go good, and people are going to pick up and just sing them till you're sick of them at each sing, because it just gives you something to experience with each other that's a good experience. Because there's been plenty of times when, like, I don't remember how a verse goes, but I remember the chorus, and that's a real tough thing for a group. Is like if you're struggling and you can't remember how to do the song. So I do this all the time because I mess up a lot. I'll say, well, let's just sing the chorus, and always end on a positive note. I mean, that's my takeaway for any struggling group. Always end on a positive note. If you had a positive experience with the song you did when you first got together that night, and then things went downhill, make sure you sing that song again before you say goodnight.
Thank you. The question from David, song circle people seem a subculture. How do you describe them?
Hmm.
My
wish
mother.
they were younger. I wish they were younger. I mean, we would love to. I think in any song circle, it tends to be middle-aged people or older, and all of us want younger people to come. And I wish it was more diverse. I think that would be something that would be fantastic if they were to evolve in that direction. It's really important. But I say that in part because I think one other commonality might be that it's a generation that was exposed to Pete Seeger and folk music when they were younger, and they learned to sing with Pete probably on some level. And that's why they're drawn to being in a song circle. There's definitely a correlation between that generation and the people who are in song circle, with some exceptions, obviously.
There's definitely some exceptions, because I've done singing with college students quite a bit, but they're few and far between as far as I know. But yeah.
I encourage you to. I sound like the oldest TikTok person here, when I'm on there. But there's a whole section of it's called Folk Talk, TOK. So if you have an opportunity to grab one of your kids' phones and take a look at it, it's a whole new audience and there's some great young people who are doing folk music there. So there's a couple more. It says, let's see. 1 second. So this is from Alan G. To all, do you have a few favorite songs that were written recently?
Yeah. We're big fans of Emma's Revolution. They've written a bunch of great stuff recently. Also, here, just you have an idea there, Peter. Peter has a thing he does called the Daily Song, and sometimes you put current.
A really
contemporary
great
songs on there.
song that we just learned just a few weeks ago. We just did a concert on Saturday night as a fundraiser for the Poor People's Campaign in Ohio, and we had met at a concert Annie did a few weeks earlier. An Ethiopian American woman who performed a song that she wrote at a People's Music Network gathering not too much earlier with her two daughters, and the three of them sang this song at the earlier concert, and we had them come back to our concert. It's called Shine, and it's about how we're all stardust. It was an amazing song written by these two elementary age girls and their mom, and it has so much energy and such good lyrics. And you know, when we get hit by something like that, we think, oh my God, there's hope for the world.
I mean, some people might not know this. I sing in a jazz band. I've been a jazz singer for a long time, and but I also sing blues and R&B with a friend of mine, and we put out a CD, and we decided to put a song. Well, we were going to put a song on there by First Aid Kit, but First Aid Kit is a band from Sweden. But then we ended up putting on a song by May Erlewine, who is a friend of mine. She's a really great songwriter. Just so many. Betsy Rose has been around a long time, but she's still writing great songs. She's does a sing too that you can go to, and it's in California, but it's online.
Some of our favorite singers like Charlie King and Cy Khan and Sally Rogers keep cranking out more
writing.
great songs.
Sally Rogers keeps writing them, and Claudia Schmidt too. I mean, but the younger generation are out there. They're writing things, and we're trying to keep up with it as best we can.
And I love learning Lady of the Harbor from you, which is relatively new. I don't know how old it is, but it's very relevant to what's happening today anyway. And that was a new song to me, Joe Jenks. So he's a very prolific writer too.
Oh, he really is. Yeah.
That's definitely a beautiful song, and thank you for putting it out there. So we're going to invite folks to submit their last questions. So if anyone else would have some questions, please put them into the chat now.
While we're waiting for the last chat, I'll just put out a little pitch. You know, I had the honor of being asked by Pete to work on his autobiography, Where Have All the Flowers Gone? I'm sure a lot of people around Beacon have a copy. And unfortunately, that book went out of print when it was published by Norton 2 or 3 years ago, maybe even a little bit longer ago than that. And I know that Pete would have been devastated that that book went out of print. So if anybody has access to a nice fund or something like that, or deep pockets, and can help us find a way to bring that book out in print, I think that'd be a great way to honor him by bringing that book back in print, because it's full of amazing stories about how to lead singing, how to make social change, how to get along with people that are different than you. Everything you need to know, as far as I'm concerned, is in that wonderful compendium book of Pete Seeger's.
Although we did put some of those stories in our songbook, If I Had a Hammer.
Some of the short ones.
Some of the short stories are in the songbook we made of Pete's songs, called If I Had a Hammer.
Oh, very good.
Commercial.
So the next question is, how can we heal the world? Which you may have answered in, but
Yeah, I would say besides singing, we have to move our bodies. Because if we're not moving our bodies, our brain's not going to engage with what people are telling us that we need to listen to. And I'm talking about BIPOC voices, you know, the voices of the oppressed, all the people that we, you know, want to hear that are working for climate justice. I really have learned that this past year, especially so much time at the computer. That's my 2 cents.
You know, Pete was so good at modeling being a good listener. You know, I mean, he was a world famous musician, yet he was always glad to let other people take the lead. He was always shining a light on young people. He was always shining a light on musicians of color. And I think that one of the big ways those of us that are, you know, like Pete and me, had white skin and came from, you know, fairly comfortable background, that listening to people who are different, listening to women, listening to Black people, listening to Indigenous people, that's really key to changing around the order of things as they are now, because they're pretty far off.
Thank you very much. So I mean, I'm going to give you you all a great round of applause, and I'm sure everyone else is applauding silently.
Do you
But
want a
I want to thank
song
you.
to close? Do you want a song to
That,
close?
that,
We could do
that,
a
that would
song.
be that would be most awesome. If you can hold up 1 second,
Sure.
because my colleague, I'd be delighted for you to do that. But Alan just wants to talk a little bit about what's coming up next month. Alan?
Okay, if you give me 1 second here. Just for our audience, our next month's lecture is going to be Thursday, May 20th at 7 p.m. with Bill McKibben. The topic is Down to the Wire, the decade that will decide the climate fight. He's the founder of 350.org, a very well-known author and speaker. So hopefully people will come. I have a couple other things. Links to Annie and Peter's website. So if you're interested in following up, if you're interested in the books or whatever, and that's and if you're interested in more about the film, this is a link to the to Polly's website. So without further ado,
Thank you, Alan. And now I think we're going to hear a French version of Little Boxes. Is that what you were saying?
That's right. And actually, just a shout out to Polly. It was such a joy to work with you, Polly, on this project. You were always so wonderful and considerate and gracious. And, you know, we got to become friends over the years with you and with Candy.
So I'm sure this song is going to be familiar to many of you. We were going to do "Well May the Road Go," but I think
No.
it's in the movie, so
Yeah.
we'll do a different one. This song, if you want to know the full story of it, it's both in. I think I don't know if it's in "Where Have All the Flowers Gone," but If I Had a Hammer, we were able to get permission to tell the full story of how this song was written from a Folkways. What do you call it? The insert from a Folkways album. I think it was from the Folkways album that Pete Seeger did called Talking Union. And Florence Reese was a United Mine Workers organizer in Harlan County, Kentucky. And she wrote this song the night after some thugs went to try and beat up her husband and maybe kill him in their house and scared the daylights out of the kids. Which side are you on?
If you're going to sing along, make sure you're muted. Come all of you good workers, good news to you I'll tell of how the good old Union has come in here to dwell. Which side are you on? 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 My daddy was a miner, now in the air and sun, and I'll stick with the Union till every battle's won. Well, which side are you on? 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 They say in Harlan County there are no neutrals there. You'll either be with the Union or a thug for J.H. Blair. Yeah, which side are you on? 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 Oh, workers can't stand it. Tell me if you can. Will you be a lousy scab or will you lend a hand? Come on! Which side are you on? 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 Don't scab for the bosses. Don't listen to their lies. Us poor must we organize? Yeah. Which side are you on? 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 Yay, Pete! Presente.
Thank you very much. One of my favorite songs. I really appreciate you guys playing that. And Peter's got and there's Fred Martin. Fred, but you pick up your he's got carried on there.
My daughter's got it because Pete inscribed it to her when she was 1 year old. So she's off,
Very good.
off camera.
Hey, there we can see her hand.
Love it.
All right.
Oh, gotcha.
Well, I want to thank you. I want to thank everyone for joining us, and please do come and join one of our song circles in the future, and come out sailing with us on the Woody when we're back in the water. And I wish everyone your health and goodwill out there. And thank you once again for joining us. Alan, anything else?
No, that's it. I just want to thank Polly and Annie and Peter for very good
Thank you
discussion.
for having us. Thank you so
And,
much.
Thank you so much.
And I can say a lot of people viewed the film. You know,
Excellent.
they're still signing up. So
That's good. That's great.
thank you very
Well,
much.
great talking to all of you. It was wonderful. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you, Polly.
Have a good night, everyone. Take care.
Bye. Good night.
Night.
Bye.
This was really wonderful. Thank you very much.